back to Goodnight Lighthouse. I'm Miss Dorothy, and I'm here to read you another story. And I can't believe it, but I have another Weasel book. We've been reading all these books about Weasel, which are really cute little animals. And this one is called Wild, Wild Weasel. And do you recognize that guy? He's the same guy from the other book we read. And that's his little weasel, his pet. And I guess the little weasel gets a little wild because it's called Wild, Wild Weasel. I hope he doesn't get too wild because that might not make some people happy. We're going to have to get into this book and find out what happens with this Wild, Wild Weasel. Are you ready to get into another Weasel book with Miss Dorothy? Good. I need you to sit up and listen up because here we go. Wild, Wild Weasel, written by Salvo Lavis and James Munn, illustrated by Dave Leonard. I loved my pet weasel. He was fearless and foolish and fun. We had wild adventures together. He was my best friend. But to Mom and Pop, he was just a wild animal. Rules. 1. Weasel stays in the bedroom. 2. Weasel stays in his cage when you are gone. 3. No playing with the weasel until homework is done. Those are the rules if you want to have a weasel. They just didn't understand him. At school, the teacher gave us a tough assignment. Write something you learned in a book. Now he has a big homework assignment. What would I write about? I was stumped. And I couldn't stop thinking about my lonely weasel stuck in a cage because he wasn't trained and obedient like a dog. And then, Eureka! I would train the weasel to obey me and I would find a book to show me how. That's a good idea. But there was no book for me at the library. There's books about woodchucks and wombats, but nothing about a weasel. The librarian. Everybody knows you can't train a weasel, the librarian said. But she didn't know my weasel. I knew he could be trained, and I was going to prove it. After all, he was a very talented little fellow. I just had to make other people see it too. He could do karate and gymnastics and scuba dive and cook and ski. It was time for the weasel to go to school just like me. But which one? They have a bunch of schools for animals. Montessori School for dogs, Driscoll Academy for gifted pets, Chick's House of TV and pet training. Maybe this place would do it. Do-it-yourself pet training. It was a zoo. Could all these animals be trained? First, you give me your money, the instructor explained. Then I show you how to get your animal to sit, roll over, and stay. If your pet can do all three, you get a diploma. Wow. I gave him my money. There's a lot of different animals there. The first lesson was to get Weasel to sit. That was not a problem. With a little help from me. He's standing on him, so he sits. Next was to get Weasel to roll over. Piece of cake. In fact, the weasel was the first in the class to do it because Weasel likes to jump and roll. I would have a trained weasel in no time. I imagined the possibilities. He's thinking about all the things the weasel would be able to do if he could just get him to listen. The weasel would astonish everyone, the star of the class. The kids would cheer, and Mom and Pop would beam with pride. He's still imagining and daydreaming. But it didn't quite work out that way. Oh no! The weasel was as wild as ever. The weasel's jumping everywhere and on everybody. We were the only two who didn't graduate. Oh no, the weasel couldn't do it. Maybe everyone was right. A weasel can't be trained. What would I hand in for my homework? What would I tell Mom and Pop? I felt so alone. Then I realized I wasn't. I think you guys are pretty nifty. We both do, says the little girl with the big lizard. Really? They did? I thought they were pretty nifty too. And what if she was right? Maybe the weasel was just fine the way he was. Maybe we both were. Perhaps the weasel had learned nothing that day, but I did. How many other kids had such a remarkable pet? So what if the weasel couldn't do the same silly tricks as every other animal? He was magnificent and wonderfully wild. That night, I started writing and couldn't stop. He got an idea for his homework. The next morning, I turned in a lovely tribute to my wild, wild Weasel. The teacher loved it. He got an A+ on his book called Wild, Wild Weasel. I don't know if Mom and Pop understood that Weasel any better, but I think I made them proud. Best of all, I made a friend. We all did. Wow, that was such a good book. That weasel was wild, and the boy was trying to train him and wanted him to be behaved better, but you can't train a weasel. That's what everybody kept telling him. But you know what you can do? You can make new friends, friends who have wild pets of their own. Everybody made a new friend. Now they go on imagination adventures together, not alone. I love books where we make new friends, because making friends is one of Miss Dorothy's favorite things to do. This was a good book, and I'm so glad we read it together, because you're my friend, and I like going on adventures with you. But right now, it's time for all my little weasels to get into bed. I need you to get under your covers, get cuddled up, curled up, ready for a really good night's sleep. No more being wild tonight, my little weasel. It's time for you to get some sleep. And tomorrow, if you start getting a little too wild, and Mom or your teacher says, calm down, obey, and obey right away. And then come back and see Miss Dorothy. I'm going to be right here, ready to read another book to you. Bye! Thanks for reading with Miss Dorothy. I hope you enjoyed this book, and I hope you'll come back soon to read another. What's your favorite book? Drop Miss Dorothy a note and let me know. I'll go find it, and I'll read it to you. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you soon.